уже задняя скорость включена, как ты только, блядь, стал нахуй. А не то, что она упала, ты начинаешь дрочилкой, блядь, выключать скорость, блядь.
Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today, in War Thunder, it is time to have a look at the Warbond shop for February 2020. This obviously ends on the 29th of February this year, obviously because that is, well, the end of the month, but at least over the month in the Warbond shop there is some really nice goodies on offer. There isn't a ton of stuff, and it's also kind of sad to see some things disappear compared to last month, but we'll go through them in this video. So the vehicles that are on offer are the A6M2 for China, you got the Pz.Kpfw and Churchill for Germany as well, the captured Churchill, the HS129B2 for Italy, the Key 96, the BTD1, and the T3457 1943. So there's some really nice ground vehicles here, and also some good air vehicles, but not in the general sense. They're generally good at little things which, you know, you're probably not used to, or, you know, good in certain game modes that maybe not everybody plays. We also have this pretty cool Crocodile 8 emblem, the 119th Assault Helicopter Company from Pleiku, Vietnam. You can see it right here, this little boy. One of the interesting things for me about this is the fact that it has access to some interesting little images of guns and also rockets on it, which I think is a really nice and really cool design. So whoever made that, really good job on that overall. And the other thing as well is there are of course some 3D decorations, 3D camouflages, and boosters and test drives available. So we'll go through each of the things. The first thing to mention is the box, the Battle Trophy Vehicle box, still hasn't changed. It is exactly the same as it has been for an incredibly long time. It would be really nice if this would change at some point. Normally, I think, personally, you should have a Battle Trophy box for 6 months, therefore it gives people an opportunity to be able to get each of these vehicles, but unfortunately this has been around for what seems like a hell of a lot longer. It would be nice to see that change at some point in this new year. So let's have a look at the Warbond shop in game. If you want to know how Warbonds work, pretty much you do daily tasks which you can find here, along with special tasks which you earn through the Warbond shop. You have to basically click here, get a special task and pick the one which you like, and then get so many special tasks in order to unlock the specific tiers on what to go for. Then you have to do so many daily tasks in order to get the shop levels to be able to get to these top. You get 2 daily tasks a day, so 20 days will get you level 5 shop level. That's how it all works. So even if you start now, you'll still have the opportunity to be able to get yourself to these later vehicles. So let's go through the different stuff. The first thing to understand is there is a lot difference between this new one and this one from before. So the thing that is missing from the new Warbond shop is these 2 boxes have disappeared once again. So these were available in January. What these gave you were the interesting, basically, pin-ups, which were really nice to see. And then this one gave you some of the zodiac signs, which was great. But it's really sad to see them not brought over to this side. They've actually just disappeared once again. I know they bring them in every so often and then take them out again, but for me, it would be nice if they were just more of a recurring thing every month instead of something which comes in and disappears. There is plenty of decals and plenty of, you know, stuff such as the zodiac signs to be able to put in this already. If you just see, this would be 6 months worth of Warbond shops for somebody, and then if we have a look at this, this would be what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are all of the ones from last year, I believe. I think if you wanted to give an RNG element to it, you could just put them into, let's call it a 2019 box or a 2018 box, and just let people roll for the different decals that they don't have. That would be the best way to do it. But it is sad to see them taken out once again from the Warbond shop. So let's have a look at the test drives. The test drives that are available. We have the Centurion Action X, the AMX 13 SS11, the JU288C, the B17E, T114, scene, and then of course the profiles. Hopefully at some point these will be changed too, since I think I've had these for around about 6 months now, so that means that other people could also get 6 months. So there's a few things in game which has been really nice to see, you know, an increase of. You know, we've got some more medals across the board, we've got some more achievements across the board, we've got some more titles across the board. But I tell you what would be really nice to see, an updated amount of profile icons put in here. And yes, we did get a bunch of new profile icons in here, so it shows that there are some available to be able to put in. And then the other thing as well that would be nice to see is just an increase in, as I said, those decal boxes before. The Centurion X&X is, I think, probably the vehicle which is one of the youngest vehicles to be put into the test drive arena. It's basically a 6.7 Centurion with a slightly different turret. The 84mm or the 20-pounder is a very good gun with its AP, especially. It pens enough and does a ton of damage with it. If you need a higher muzzle velocity or just to do a little bit, you know, more penetration, the APDS there as well. It has a stabilizer. It has the Centurion chassis, so it's a little bit slower than some of the other vehicles that you run up against, such as the light vehicles, but overall it's a pretty solid vehicle. It also joins itself with the British 6.7 lineup of the Centurion Mark III, the Carnarvon, and also the FV4202, and your selection of really average tank destroyers. So you can just slick this in, get a good RP bonus and also an SL bonus, so it's a pretty good pickup if you want to just do a test drive. The next vehicle, the AMX-13 SS11, this one is a little bit more, let's say, specialized. It's once again 6.7 for the French, and the SS11s are very good, but you need to expose your turret in order to fire them at an enemy. This pretty much means that you have to fire and they will be able to fire back before your SS11 gets there. The SS11 is generally pretty slow, as you can see, 150 meters per second through the air. This means that your missile has plenty of time in the air and plenty of time for the enemy to turn around and shoot you. You also can't move your vehicle since it is keyboard controlled, the missiles, so once you fired it, you're stuck in position. It does have access to scouting, does have access to really nice stuff such as the airstrike ability. I personally really like it. I've used it quite a lot, and I would probably prefer to take the Action X over it though, because it's an all-round better vehicle. The Ju-288C, if you want a vehicle that can print silver lines, if you want a vehicle that can just kill bases without even thinking, do you want to turn your brain off and just research the German tech tree without even thinking? Well, I've got the thing for you. It's called the Ju-288C. Just spawn into a game, drop 2 of these bombs, the 2-1800s, on the bases, and then just go and land, and if somebody gets on your tail, kill them with the 20mm, which does insane damage. Even one MG151 can easily, you know, be able to tear apart some stuff. If you want to see how I've used it to great effect in my escapades, you can see here 79 battles, 46 victories, and because we're at 5.7 Germany, the win rate ain't too bad either. But you can see I've nearly got a 0.5 KD, which in a bomber is incredibly good. Made a ton of SL, made a ton of RP. It's a very nice vehicle if you just want to switch your brain off and just research stuff. It's also rank 4, so it can research everything rank 5 and below. If you want to take it out for a test drive, I'd say this is the best out of the lot, just because you can just play it for however long it gives you, you know, the day, the 3 hour, or the 1 hour, and just go into realistic over and over and over again, get some SL, and also get some really nice research from it, and you don't even have to try. The next vehicle is the B-17E. The B-17E has been unfortunately nerfed many times over the years, and now it's in a pretty dire state. At least it's slightly better on the Japanese side of things, just because you get on a lot of maps where it gets some aircraft cover. The problem is it's actually harder to kill targets. A lot on the Japanese maps, like the island maps, such as the, you know, the maps such as stuff like Iwo Jima, you do not have a lot of targets that you can go after which are exactly stationary. A lot of them are moving. things. So for a target, or for a machine like the B-17E, which has stuff like 6,000 pounders or 12,500s, it's not exactly easy to just annihilate stuff like bases, because, well, they don't exist on a lot of those maps. So that's a bit of a problem. If you're good at precision bombing, this is not a bad pickup. It'll also help you research a lot of the Japanese tree, but I would actually say the Japanese tree is well worth grinding through just from the fighter lines themselves, because they're just really, really fun to play. So I think this is probably one of the worst ones out of the test drives. The T114, though, is a very fun little machine with its 3-stack autoloader. What I mean by that is it has these 3 pieces, and once, you know, once it runs out of these, it does have to reload. But it's a rank 5 battle rating 6.7 little go-kart with the access to the 106mm recoilless rifle. This gives you access to heat. You can just fire those 3 shots at an enemy, annihilate it, and then run away again in your little binky car. With only a crew of 2, it's got terrible survivability, and also it can get killed from the top really easily, so you get killed by a bunch of planes which will just hunt you down and annihilate you, and also, you know, you also will just get annihilated by anything that shoots at you. So you've got to make sure to shoot first. You can also use it as a scout, and with the 6-7 lineup of the Americans, with the T-34, all of the light tanks that you have, and also stuff like the T-30 there at 6.7, it's still, you know, it's a very good vehicle. It's also one that can get up-tiered very well because of the penetration on the heat round, and so you can take it up to 7.7, 8.0 and use it as a pure scout and have a lot of fun with it. So if I was going to rate all these vehicles, I would say it goes to the Ju-288 and then the T114 just for the fun factor. Then I would throw in the Centurion Action X because it's a very solid vehicle, MX-13 SS11, which is a little bit more all over the place, and then the B-17 is the last one, unfortunately, for it. Moving on to the vehicles themselves, which you can research by doing your dailies and getting the Warbonds and getting the special tasks. The first one is the T-3457. The T-3457 finds itself at 4.3, and I would actually say it's a very good vehicle. One of the nice things about 4.3 for the Soviets is you have a really solid lineup around it, and it's the first one which gets pretty good penetration, even though you don't really need it. Now that stuff like the Tiger H1 has been down to 5.3, you're going to run into stuff that you're going to have to, you know, use this higher penetration on. So you can see at 4.3 you got the ZIS-5, the T-3457, ASU-57, and also the T-3457 1943. The major difference between the 43 and the T-3457 you see here is the turret. The turret is slightly better on the T-3457. It's more similar to the 1942 turret that you see here compared to the flatter one, which is more similar to the 1940 turret on the T-3457. These two used to be at a different BR. I'm happy to say that now they're not. You know, they're very at a very similar BR, and the main thing that this machine is good at is getting into very nice positions at the start of battles, because it has pretty good speed behind it, and also it has some trolley armor, so you can bounce some rounds randomly. On top of this as well, it has access to rounds which pen 145, 125, 55, and 145, 129, 53, and also the APCR which pens 177. So you're not going to have any issues going through anything that you fight. Some things you will have to actually aim for, but that's fine, you know, that's a standard as we go. The other thing with it is the only problem is the gun depression. This is something you should be used to when it comes to Soviet vehicles, because the gun depression is always not good. Reload rate is great though, crew survivability is okay, as long as you don't get knocked through the turrets with an APC-BC from a German machine, and also because the ammunition is where it is, you know, in this lower area, it's kind of hard to pop it as well. You can see the fuel tanks all over the place, so yes, you know, if an artillery hits your sides, you will set on fire, so make sure that, you know, you have that FPE sorted. I personally like the vehicle. It's also part of a really nice lineup which can also run the Ac-9T alongside it, so yeah, it's a very, very fun little machine. The next vehicle is the A6M2. This is the Chinese A6M2, so this isn't the Japanese A6M2. So the main thing you're going to fight as China is actually Japan. So if you want to take a mirror matchup vehicle and go up against, you know, vehicles that are very similar to it, this would be the one to take. Also, it is one of the reasons to get something like the A6M2 is to be able to research through a lot of vehicles that maybe you've played before. One of the problems that I personally had with the Chinese tech tree is I just have played a lot of these vehicles before. I got incredibly bored of it because of this fact. But with something like the A6M2 or the Ki-45 High Tai or the H81A2, you can quickly skip past a lot of the vehicles that are very similar to the ones that you generally face. So if you are if you're very confident in your ability with the A6M2, which is a very good plane, you know, it holds energy incredibly well in the turn. It has very good climb rate. Its guns can be circumspect, but you know, once you get used to the muzzle velocity, especially the 20s, you're completely fine, and you can run rings around pretty much anyone when it comes to Americans, when it comes to the British, and so on and so forth. The only problem you'll have is straight line speed sometimes when you face other players, but the thing is, against Japan, which you normally face as China, you're not going to have that issue. So you will just be able to outfight them, which will be incredibly fun to do. So yeah, I would actually say this is a good pickup, even though it's just a copy of a vehicle that you fight a lot. It's something where you can outskill an opponent at the same level, and that just feels really nice. Oh, the Independent makes a return, the 1.3 chugger. So the Independent, there's always one of these big land ships which is put in here. Like well, I shouldn't say every, the majority of nations have it. So you got the Independent here, the Soviets get, of course, the T-35, then the Germans get the Fahrzeug, and then, of course, the Japanese get the Rogo, which I think the Rogo is actually the least used vehicle in game, or at least it seems to be. The Americans don't get a big chonker, but maybe at some point they will. But anyway, the Independent is probably one of the worst out of the larger boys. The reason for this is because it has multitudes of turrets, but only one of them actually has a gun, the 47mm Ordnance QF 3-pounder. The other turrets only have Vickers machine guns, so of course they're not going to do too much damage. You also have a little issue where you have a lot of rump in the trunk, and that means that you can stick this out and get shot in it over and over again, setting you on fire and you know, not doing a lot to you. The frontal armor on this as well is 28mm, and that is backed up by another 28mm, or just 28mm here, and this means that stuff such as autocannons from nations such as, you know, such as the Germans, which you'll fight a lot, can just go straight through it with 64mm worth of pen. The other thing as well is the other meta vehicles at this BR, the Stuarts from the Americans, and also the Stuarts from the Chinese, can also just go through you like butter. The only nation that may have a little bit of issue penning you is France, and that is with guns from like the 1910s, such as this vehicle here, the AMC, 1892, with 27mm worth of pen. So yeah, it's not a very good vehicle. Is it a vehicle to, you know, have a bit of fun with if you've had a stressful day at top tier, or if your friends want to go around and meme? Yes, I suppose the Independent is for you, but if you actually want something useful for grinding, or something which is going to be good, don't bother with this. Just only get it if you know, just want to go and piss about at low tier. The Pz.Kpfw Churchill is one of those vehicles which is one which I never wished was added to the game. It adds to a 4-row captured lineup that the Germans can run, which is an incredibly good lineup in itself. If you didn't know, you can run the KV-2 754 now, the KV-1B, the Pz.Kpfw Churchill, and also the T-34 747R. Now, the KV-1B, which I actually have a coupon for right here, is a vehicle that I will never take out of the hangar. The reason is because of its historical ridiculousness and how good it was, and it is still incredibly good. It's one of those vehicles which people take out during events such as Operation Frost to absolutely annihilate anything which is coming at it, and to try and get their challenges done as quickly as possible, because it's rank 3, battle rating 4.0, it's got good armor, and it's also on the side of the machines which can't actually you know, which are normally the general counters of it, the Panzer IVs with the long 75. Now the Shermans do a little bit better against it, but there's still a bit of problems when it comes to penetration. So to add to that, you have the Churchill with the 57, so good armor and also good gun with very good reload and great gun depression, a little bit too slow. Then the T-34 747, and then if you switch over to the plane side of things, you have stuff such as, you know, the Yak-1B, the IL-2 you can bring in, and also other stuff if you want it up to yourself, the P-47D, just to wreak havoc in the air. So even though the Churchill isn't, you know, the best vehicle by itself because of its speed, it adds into that component of an insanely good German 4.0 lineup, which can be heavily covered in premiums, and therefore you can make a bunch of SL with it. You can make a bunch of GE with it because you can run it with stuff such as the wages that a lot of people use, like these ones, and just do these with them and just annihilate, you know, annihilate vehicles as you go. It's incredibly good for doing dailies. It's incredibly good for, you know, doing challenges and operations. So yeah, it's a pretty good pick. The Duck for the Italians, I believe it is, the HS-129B2 Romania. I'll just check this one actually. I'm pretty sure it's this one. Yeah, this one. Because the German one, I think, got hidden a while back, because I don't think I actually have it. Yeah, so the German one got hidden, so I'm guessing that this is the Italian one. I'd be very surprised if this wasn't the Italian one. At 3.3, you have an amazingly solid ground lineup for Italy. You have this Leoncello lineup that you can run at 3.3, with also the Contrario as well. And the HS-129B2 can give you a separate option from the air to be able to donk on people. You have access to the 30mm Mk103 with 100 rounds of ammunition. This thing pens at 95mm. If you want to clean up a tank line in air realistic, or if you want to annihilate tanks in ground realistic, this is your machine. It's incredibly good at doing both. Just understand that if there is a fighter in the area, you're going to get clobbered, and it's just something you're going to have to deal with. It's just something you're going to have to just take, really. It's not very good against other planes unless you head on with it, and also it's pretty good in naval just by annihilating ships really quickly with the 30mm. You also have different options for secondaries. You can get a 37, but it only has 12 rounds, or 450s. So the 30mm is always the way to go. Rat-a-tat-a-tat with it with the Mk103. Do a bunch of damage to whatever you see. Works best in ground realistic, but is also pretty good in air realistic. Just remember the engines are incredibly weak. The Key 96 3.7 rank 3. This machine is another one of those heavy fighters for Japan, which has a pretty decent amount of power behind it when it comes to its engines. You can see 600 kilometers an hour with two Nakajima HA112s, 1240 horsepower, and then takeoff power of 1550. The place where this is actually let down is its armament. It has two 20mm HO5s and then one 37mm with only 25 rounds of ammunition. So if you can do well with the 20mm, Godspeed with you. For me, I really struggle with the muzzle velocity of the 20mm. I really don't like, you know, how they work. And then when it comes to 37, it's a Heffy T, so it's a default round of Heffy T, which you can't change. So this thing is not a ground attacker at all. It is a simple air superiority heavy fighter. It's very good against bombers at 3.7, but it's one of those things where you're going to get outturned by a lot of you know, single engine aircraft, so you're going to have to use it in a supporting role, and if you want to use it in ground or naval, you're going to be limited to being an air superiority fighter. I'd say this is one of the worst out of these, just for those reasons. The next vehicle is the BTD. The BTD at 4.0 has become a little monster because of the fact that Naval Forces was obviously added to the game. One of the biggest things for the BTD is it has access to this. It has access to carrying two torpedoes, the Mark 1344s, and these have a drop speed range of 0 to 518 kilometers an hour and 0 to 250 meters. So you can go incredibly fast in the BTD to be able to drop these. This means that you are incredibly good in naval battles to be able to nuke two destroyers or two heavy cruisers with these torpedoes. You also also have options in other game modes, such as the 2,000 pounder or the two 1,000 pounders to be able to do well in ground realistic. It's not so good in air realistic, just because, you know, you can maybe hit a base and that's really about it. The guns are 220mm ANM2s. They're very good at taking out other aircraft, and they're okay at taking out ground targets as well. You get a decent amount of ammunition behind it to be able to be used as well. It's a pretty decent dogfighter, but you're still not going to be able to come out on top against most fighters. You're going to have to use this as first, you know, a naval destroyer, and then secondly as something which, you know, can maybe create some 2-on-1s or give some support to your allied fighters. I personally think this is one of the best pickups in this list just because of its usefulness in naval forces, and hopefully, you know, more people can get into naval. So if you want like a ranking system, I suppose, of the vehicles, you know, we have number 1 is the BTD-1, just because of its naval component and its usefulness in being a supportive fighter. Then the Churchill to round out your 4-0 crazy German lineup. T-34-57 comes in at 3rd. The Zero comes in at 4th. Incredibly good plane, just, you know, make sure that you understand the matchups. Then you have the HS-129B2 because of its usefulness in ground realistic, and also turning a battle in air realistic by nuking a column of tanks. Then you got the Key 96 because of its fact that it's only an air superiority fighter really, and then you got the Independent, which is just not very good unless, you know, you're drinking and want to have a bit of fun with people. So yeah, that is the Warbond shop for February of 2020. I hope this video has helped you, and hopefully you can grind some of this stuff out and have some fun with it. And if not, just do what I do a lot of the time, where once I hit that max cap, just purchase this box, get yourself a booster for SL or RP, and then use it in battles. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Chris Giltnane, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, and also Elove Goat and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.